Top 5 Mania is running wild. I'm Walter Benasiak. Last week we took a look at the worst, but today we count down the top 5 best WWE finishers. I got some great feedback from you guys on last week's episode, and if you want more wrestling-related videos, make sure you keep letting me know in the comments below, on my Twitter, @awesome_Walter, and subscribe to my personal channel, youtube.com/awesomewalter. I'll definitely be putting more wrestling-related videos on there soon. It's WrestleMania season, and with the 33rd edition of the Show of Shows coming up on April 2nd, now is a great time to talk about everyone's favorite panda-protecting former federation, World Wrestling Entertainment. The finisher is a wrestler's move that is supposed to put away his or her opponent, and most of the time they win their match with it. There have been some awesome ones in the long history of World Wrestling Entertainment / the World Wrestling Federation, and some of these moves are even more popular than the wrestlers performing them. Are you ready? These are the top 5 best WWE finishers. Number 5, Seth Rollins Curb Stomp.
Rollins off the distraction by Triple H. Rollins going for the curb stomp.
This is a personal favorite, and it's been banned for a few years now, but I always thought it was a great move and looked legit. As his opponent was down, Rollins would run at them, jump, and bury his foot in the back of their head until they hit the ground. It wasn't a long way down to the mat, but man, this thing looked effective, especially when Rollins would do it onto a chair or harder surface. Since it's been banned, Rollins now uses the pedigree as his finisher. I guess it makes sense considering his involvement with Triple H, but the banning of the curb stomp never really made much sense to me.
Vince was like, well, I could see Shane doing this very easily to Stephanie when they were kids. Like, he had that vision in his head of Stephanie lying prone on the ground and Shane just stomping her in the back of the head. And I'm like, what do you say? What do I even say to that? It's a man and his children.
One of the marks of a good finisher for any wrestler is the ability to perform it on anyone. Seth isn't a small guy at all, but compared to some of the bigger wrestlers on the roster, he's not exactly a giant. He could do the curb stomp on anyone, no matter the size of the person taking it. In fact, I think the wrestler who took it the best was a bigger guy. Brock Lesnar took and sold that thing perfectly. He'd raise his head just a bit before going down, and the timing was always great.
Don't do that, Seth.
Oh, yes, Cena always took a mean curb stomp as well, and Rob Van Dam had at least one memorable one.
And Rollins going for the curb stomp and connecting.
It was a badass move that was genius in its simplicity. Maybe down the road they'll bring it back, but until then, it will be missed. Number 4, Evan Bourne's Airborne.
Looking to take advantage, perhaps Ryder in trouble. Bourne still connect.
The shooting star press was done before this and has been done after this, but it's never been done quite as well as when Evan Bourne performed the move. For anyone who doesn't know what a shooting star press is, Evan would climb to the top rope and do a forward jumping backflip, landing on his laying opponent chest first. It was very over with the fans and still looks spectacular to this day. Even if the bar has been raised with more complex top rope finishers, this always looked flawless and nobody did it better. The most well-known person to use this move before Bourne was Billy Kidman. While it was impressive, it was also kind of...
Kidman's up top! Shooting star press! Oh! Out Chavo Guerrero for 5 full minutes.
I mean, look, the knee right here was driven right into the temple of Chavo Guerrero. Horrific deal right here.
Ugly sometimes. It was another previously banned move by WWE, and this instance may have had something to do with that.
Yes! Shooting star press right on his head!
Bourne brought it back with very positive results, and at his peak, he became very popular for performing the move. I always liked Evan Bourne, and there was a moment there for a few weeks where he was starting to be pushed as a semi-big deal. It didn't last too long, but I was behind him, and it's a real shame how his foot injury and other issues ended his WWE career. However, he still wrestles on the indies, and his Airborne is tough to top. Neville's Red Arrow is definitely more difficult to do, but it doesn't look quite as pretty or clean as Bourne's stunning finisher. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin's Stone Cold Stunner.
Stunner!
This is quite possibly the most well-known finisher WWE has ever had. Old Stone Cold would kick his opponent in the midsection, lock their head over his shoulder, and drop his butt down to the mat. It's a truly iconic maneuver that was the top move of the top star in the top era of the top company in wrestling. Top! Since Austin was arguably the most popular superstar in the history of wrestling, this move got a lot of attention when he was the WWE's #1 guy in the 90s. It's such an easy and often sudden move to hit, but it always felt special. The crowd reactions to a Stone Cold Stunner in the Attitude Era were something to see and hear.
Stone Cold! The Rock! Stone Cold! Stun the Rock! Stunner to the Rock! Austin stun the Rock! Because I need kicked.
Just as fun as seeing a stunner was how the stunnered person took it. The Rock is well known for his over-the-top way of doing so. But my favorite stunner take goes to Scott Hall.
Also the stunner! 2 outs!
With Vince McMahon as a close second. You'd be hard-pressed to find a wrestling fan who doesn't like the stunner. It's a fun move to see live or on TV. It's good to see Austin return to TV to deliver one once in a while to an unsuspecting victim. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Number 2, Brock Lesnar's F5. From the first second I saw this move in 2002, I've loved it. Brock picks up his opponent in a fireman's carry and spins them off his shoulders. With torque, they crash into the mat. It's one of the coolest finishers I've seen in WWE and the one I imitated most as a kid. I was F5ing everybody. As one of the older kids among my cousins, everyone was fair game. I'd F5 them into pools, onto couches, grass, wherever. Teenage Walter was bringing the pain. I'd even F5 cousins that were bigger than me. I wasn't able to get the full rotation and they usually landed on me, but it didn't matter. F5 Fury, bitch. Now this is a move that showed off some strength. I love watching F5s. Bigger wrestlers, little wrestlers, it didn't matter. They all fell to this move's tornadic nature. I will say, when Brock first picked up Big Show for the move, it was one of the most impressive feats of strength I ever saw at that point. It was incredible. Brock was unstoppable in his first year, tearing through everyone, a true monster. I was a huge Hogan fan in those days, and seeing him bear hug the Hulkster until he bled from the mouth made me hold a grudge against Lesnar for years. Even when he turned face, I hated him. It wasn't until years later that I started coming around to rooting for him in matches. However, I always loved that F5. What? Can you F5 a shark? There are a lot of amazing finishers that I just couldn't fit onto this list. So, before we get to number 1, here are some honorable mentions. And the number 1 best WWE finisher is... I hate to be predictable, but this really has become the best finisher in WWE. Somewhat similar to the Stone Cold Stunner, Randy Orton's RKO is famous for being hit from out of nowhere. Orton leaves his feet jumping high into the air and grabbing his opponent's head. He pulls it all the way down to the surface below while Orton himself lands on his back, creating an even bigger impact. It's a move that has gotten more and more popular over time, but it blew up a couple years ago with memes that were impossible to escape.
Randy Orton in a place we've never seen him before.
We've seen DDP do this same move years before Randy in WCW, but Orton does it a little bit differently. Make no mistake, the Diamond Cutter was a huge move that was also very popular for its time. People loved to see it. However, Orton brought it up to the next level with his uncanny athleticism. He jumps into it, which makes the move that much bigger, and what everybody loves to see is when he hits it unexpectedly. Counters into the RKO are some of the coolest looking highlight reel moments of modern WWE.
Randy in position for another curb stop. Oh, unbelievable! This one more time. How about magnifying this? Watch his hand. How about taking the action to tonight.
Just when you think he can't pull off a more unique RKO, Orton does it. It's the finisher that keeps on giving, and it's my #1 best WWE finisher. I want to hear what you guys think. What is your favorite WWE finisher? What do you want me to cover next on the show? Leave a comment and let me know. Take a look back at last week's video where we counted down the top 5 worst WWE finishers. Make sure you check out Awesome Comics from yesterday where we ask, should Batman kill?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes!
No.
Yes.
Yes! Also remember, if you're interested in more wrestling talk, subscribe to my personal channel, youtube.com/awesomewalter. Follow me on Twitter to take part in more polls about what I may count down in the future. The future. I'd rather get back to the